Heyo, it's Omnidog. Thanks for tuning in, Omnicats and Omnikittens and Omnidogs and all the rest of my Omni pals. This is a video on books that made me cry. But first, don't forget organic price books. $2 off using code Omnidog. Big savings, 5%. 5% off when you order 4 or more books together with the code Omnidog. Sit. Okay, right on organic price books and right on to my viewers. So let's talk about the stages of crying for me. This is all one thing. There are books that tear my heart out. I don't necessarily cry. This goes to all the books I'm going to show today. Tears my heart out. Oh, or I get a lump in my throat. Or I actually cry. Not necessarily weeping, but tears come to my eyes. And the first book, I don't know why and let me just say, actually, before I start, I think for a comic book to move you so much that you get emotional, that's a real gift, and that of the writer. That's a gift of the writer and the artist, and that's a credit to the medium, because it's easy to cry at TV shows, movies, things, stuff like that, for me anyway. But for a comic book to move you so much, that's really a gift. So the first one, I don't know why I don't own this in a regular floppy. I have it on my iPad, but and I need to buy it. I don't think it's very expensive. I need to get it, and it is Superman 712. I give credit to my music guy, the guy who has created all my music, Nate Burkholtz of Red Coat Turncoat. He got this, he told me about this issue a long time ago, and this cover he has tattooed on him, which is amazing. It's by Carlos Pacheco, and it's, of course, about crypto. Here's the alternate cover by Art Germ. This happens, there's a note here why. This happens during Straczynski's Grounded series. Says, sorry for the Grounded delay, but in the meantime, please enjoy the Lost classic set shortly after Superboy died in Infinite Crisis and Superman went missing. Superman, I believe, during this time was off in space fighting Superman 2. So this is called Lost Boy, A Tale of Crypto the Superdog. So already it's crypto, so I love it. But it's by Kurt Busiek, pencils by Leonardi, and inker Jonathan Sabal. It gets set up with Connor playing with Superboy, very wholesome. I'm sorry, Connor playing with Crypto, very wholesome, and Superboy has gone missing. Or actually, Superboy died in Infinite Crisis. He came back, don't worry. But this is the aftermath of it, when it was Crypto at home at the Kent farm alone with the Kents. No Superboy, no Superman to play with, and he's lonely, and he's constantly looking for Connor and remembering what had happened in the previous Infinite Crisis stuff. And Crypto goes all over the planet looking for Connor. And it's heartbreaking. It's mostly silent, of course, because it's Crypto's story. But it is very sad because Crypto's looking for his buddy. And it's very moving and very well told. And Crypto's just bummed out and missing his buddy. So that gets me every time. We will move on to a book I can't tell you without spoiling it, in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. This is one of my top books ever. I'll show you. I can show you. You're probably already familiar with it because I've shown this so much. I just showed it as a book that needs an upgrade to absolute. I can't tell you what happens in it that made me get choked up without spoiling it. But there's a moment in there with a character. You won't be surprised that it choked me up. Yeah, it definitely choked me up. This book is wonderful, and Tom King does a wonderful job of tearing my heart out and getting me choked up. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, you got me. This next book, everybody knows about. Everybody knows why I get choked up at it. Day Tripper, the deluxe edition. It kind of leads you into not an existential crisis, but it does its job very effectively when it shows the protagonist reliving some moments in his life that ultimately end with his death at various stages. And it's the entire book just talks about the important days in his life and how they end, and it's very thought-provoking, very thoughtful, super well written. It deserves all the accolades it gets, and at the end you're left thinking, which is always a dangerous thing for me, but you're thinking about your own life and what would happen if all of a sudden that was it. Should we be living in the moment more? Things like that. It deals with a lot of philosophical issues and is extremely well told. It's super popular for a reason. The next book is actually, I brought the 4 series out, sorry, the 4 trades out. This is Canto, and this is about a little creature who has had his heart replaced with a clock, and he goes looking. There is an overruling dictator, very scary dictator, the Shrouded Man, and Canto goes on a major league journey to find love is forbidden, and they damage his girlfriend's heart. I don't know that it's his girlfriend, the girl he loves. He damages her heart beyond repair, and he sets off on a quest. And ultimately, now there's 3 other books besides this, so the adventure goes on for a while, but the end of the book is really, really well done, because he fails in his quest, but gives his village and the surrounding people the courage to stand up and fight against the Shrouded Man. Now the reason, so that I thought that was very, I didn't get choked up, but it got me right here. And the rest of the stories are so, the rest of the books are so filled with heart and spirit that it's a really great series that I can recommend. I'm sure it's coming out in deluxe edition because I bought all 4. The reason I brought all 4 here is because they sort of throw a curveball at you. There's Canto Volume 1, and there's Canto Volume 2, and then Canto Volume 3, wait a sec, there's a book before it. So it's easy to try and read 1, 2, and 3, but I remember reading 3 going, I feel like something's missing here. Yeah, it was this, Canto, Tales of the Unnamed World. So if you decide to get this, this is what it looks like. 1, 2, blah, 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 Tales of the Underworld 3. So make sure you read them in that order. Oh boy, this next one, just thinking about it, breaks my heart. I definitely teared up. We Three by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. This is about 3 animals that the government has experimented on and made weapons out of. They escape, and it tells the tale of their escaping, the journey they go through. Of course, it's heartbreaking because it's animals, but at least I can say, and I don't want to spoil the ending, but that's kind of gory. Well, there's a lot of gore in it, actually, because these animals are weapons and they communicate with each other and they just want to get home. So I don't want to spoil the ending, but not all the animals perish. The 3 of them, they don't all perish. So you do get hope. As opposed to Pride of Baghdad, which by Brian K. Vaughan, which is extremely well written. I own it. I don't know that I'm going to be able to read it again. It's so heartbreaking. I mean, it truly tore me apart. But this one ends on a note of hope and a very sweet ending, and a kind of warm, gave you kind of a warm and fuzzy feeling a little bit, because it dealt with so much pain and trauma for these animals that the ending makes you feel better about things. And it's a scary book. There's a lot of scary animal stuff that goes on in it. I am somebody that couldn't read Stray Dogs. I doubt I can read Feral. I'm worried about reading Animal Castle. But this one I made it through. I definitely got choked up on this one. Now, this one was my book, I'm pretty sure it was my book of the year last year, Superman Space Age. This is the standard cover by Mark Russell and Mike and Laura Allred. I love the art in it. I think Mike and Laura Allred helped translate Mark Russell's writing, translates it really well. I think the Allreds get the most out of his script. The ending, to me, actually, like the set. First of all, it's set on. I've talked about this a lot, so I don't want to go too much in detail into it. You can look in my catalog of back videos, previous videos, to see a more in-depth review. But it draws on the experiences of Clark's father during World War II and Lois's father during World War II, and that helps flesh out the narrative. But the very, very end is so, I don't want to get too far into it, but I found the last quarter of the book is very filled with heartbreaking moments, realistic, real moments, and the very end, Superman, I don't know if I'm spoiling it or not, but Superman ends with an act of hope and faith that I definitely got choked up. This book moved me in a number of ways. That's one reason I love it so much. Mark Russell does a brilliant job on this, and the Allreds do too. But the ending fills you with hope and heartbreak. So I love this book. Now, I can already spoil what made me I definitely cried at this, because this is Alan Moore's book, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm not naming these books. Superman Space Age. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. And it's Alan Moore. DC had Alan Moore kind of transition from Silver Age Superman into bringing Superman. This is the end sort of the Silver Age Superman as we knew him. And so the art's great by Kurt Swan. And in it, because they are wiping the slate clean and doing away with the Silver Age characters, Krypto dies. Yeah, spoiler alert, he dies from kryptonite poisoning. But it got to me. I grew up loving Krypto. This is the era that I grew up loving. I love Krypto, and to see him die defending his master was just heartbreaking to me. And it definitely choked me up. And there's some other deaths in here too that choked me up, because that's how they had to end the Silver Age and wipe the slate clean. I totally get it. Alan Moore does a great job of using emotions, getting my emotions up. He does a wonderful job. There are consequences. Nobody's safe. Great ending. Great last panel. But maybe this is because it's my childhood that ends up. Silver Age Superman was my childhood, and so maybe there's not only the loss of Krypto affecting me, but also the loss of all the characters I grew up with. Yes, I'm aware that comic books aren't real, but it felt real to me growing up. So this is a beautiful story, amazingly written, and yeah, I definitely shed tears over this. The next one is by Ram V, The Many Deaths of Laila Starr. This book, I feel like this might have been my book of the year too. People have compared it to Day Tripper, but I'm not really sure that that's an apt comparison, because Ram V draws on his Hindu religion or the Hindu belief system to say that the premise of the book is that there is a child being born on Earth who grows up to solve the end of life issue. He creates immortality. And so they call Death up in the upper office and give her walking papers. So she's without a job now, and she goes down to Earth and with the idea of killing the boy that who has created immortality. This is just a brilliant, beautiful book told from many perspectives, including a cigarette that she smokes, that because she still retains traces of her goddesshood, the cigarette gains sentience, and it tells a story from its perspective. She keeps getting brought back to life by a friendly fellow god on Earth, and she lives many lives and many deaths. That's why it's called The Many Deaths of Laila Starr. This is another one. Now I can see how in Day Tripper it could be compared because it makes you think. It's got a lot of thoughts going on. It gives you a lot to think about. It definitely tore at my heart, because it talks about life and death and the living of it. Ramvi even talks about a famous Mumbai fire that occurred. I think that's where the sentient cigarette comes in. She talks to her fellow god a lot and comes to terms with the boy and who becomes a man throughout this. She keeps coming back in various stages of his aging, and she comes to terms with him it is so well written and so well done and so well illustrated by Felipe Andrade. Um, this is one of my top books ever. I highly recommend it. This is extremely well written, and you know, any book that can pull at my emotions like this, Ram V did his job, and I highly recommend this. The next one was my introduction to Daniel Warren Johnson, Murder Falcon. A lot of people already know about this. I met Daniel Warren Johnson at Heroes Con in 2023, bought the book from him, and he put this boss drawing in it and personalized it. As an aside, probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met, not only in the industry, but just in general. What a smiling, happy, great guy he is. Murder Falcon tells the story of how a musician brings metal to a world that's under attack by monsters. And in it, Jake, the main character is Jake. He meets Murder Falcon, who he calls Murph. So Murph was sent to help Jake fight off these aliens. And Jake's power is his shredding on his guitar. It's a very metal book because Daniel Warren Johnson loves metal. God bless him for that, because that's awesome. And the ending, I don't know. If you're not moved by this ending, who hurt you? What's going on with you? Because this ending, I genuinely went through all three, clutched my heart, got choked up, and shed a tear. It is an epic adventure and treatise on life and death, and Murph is a great character to share the stage with Jake. I think that, whoa, look at this. I think many people know about this book already. If you haven't read it, do yourself a favor. This is an all-time great. Another book many people know about, and that is Sweet Tooth by Jeff Lemire. This might have been my first introduction to Jeff Lemire, and it tells the story in a sort of a post-apocalyptic world where mutations have happened, and there are it ends up with mutations of animals and people. So you've got Sweet Tooth here with the antlers on it, and the other characters, and it's very while I realize Lemire's art isn't for everyone, it is perfect. I actually like Lemire's art. It's perfect in this book. This is book 3. There's I have the deluxes, volumes 1 through 3. But all throughout it is of course very sympathetic to the various levels of intelligence the animal hybrids, the people-animal hybrids have, the fear that they have of humans, and the person, Mr. Jeopard, that befriends initially and ends up befriending him, Sweet Tooth, all the way through. Mr. Jeopard's, the dynamic between Mr. Jeopard's and Sweet Tooth is very moving, and then the ending is really remarkable. Just a sweet, beautiful, perfect ending that I think I got choked up. I still get choked up reading the ending. And I think, whoops, that's a spoiler, so I don't want to show it. If you haven't read this, this is really, you know, like all the books I'm showing, really remarkable. It's, I don't know, a lot of Jeff Lemire's books definitely pack an emotional punch, which show what a great writer he is. This next book was, I got introduced to by Omnicat, Kristen, and that's Luisa. It's a humanoids book, Luisa Now and Then. And it is about a food photographer currently who all of a sudden gets visited by her past teenage self. her teenage self ends up in her Luisa's world, and and they start questioning each other before they eventually come to a mutual understanding, because they're trying to figure out how to send Luisa back to where she belongs in the past. But it deals with a lot of it deals with the real life topic of regret and acceptance, regret of where you are in life as opposed to the teenager you were with all your hopes and dreams and thinking that you're going to be somehow a super famous something, and you end up a food photographer, which is a perfectly good job. But it's not quite what Luisa had in mind as a teenager, and as an adult, Luisa's not really that thrilled with it. So the book, of course, got me thinking, and this book got me thinking the most out of almost all the books I've ever read. This got me thinking the most. And of course, it sent me back. Like, what would my teenage self think if he showed up and started judging me? And of course, in Luisa, they both judge each other before they realize they're in it together. But it made me, I still think about it. It made me think about it. What would my teenage self think if he showed up today? And what advice would I give him? And what would I gain from him? I can think of a lot of advice that I would give teenage Omnidog. Oh my gosh, I have so many regrets. That's what pops up, of course. Not all the fun and great things that have happened to me, but the regrets. And if you're wondering, if I only had 10 seconds with him, I'd tell teenage Jess, dude, just relax, okay? Don't be so uptight. So this book by Carol Morel and adapted by Mariko Tamaki. Mariko Tamaki does a great job at adapting this book. I believe it is a French author. Carol Morel, story and art. Mariko Tamaki, English language adaptation. Nanette McGinnis, translation. So a lot of people working on getting this book out, and it's by Humanoids, and it's one of the best things they've ever put out. And last but not least, this is the book that made me start to become not a Jeff Loeb fan. I'm already a Jeff Loeb fan. A Tim Sale fan. This is Superman for All Seasons. And this is the story of Superman growing up through the seasons. Summer, it goes spring, summer, fall, winter. And it's got some other stories in it too. But this shows a Clark Kent very vulnerable. And so if Clark Kent's vulnerable, Superman's vulnerable, and I mean emotionally vulnerable. It is, I think, just beautifully written, and Tim Sale does a great job bringing the words to life. Clark has a lot of questions about his place in the world. And the page that got to me, and still gets to me, is when he is in Metropolis and he's really starting to wonder about his place in the world. And the page that got to me, and I give credit not only to Jeff Loeb, but Tim Sale, with Clark going back to Smallville, going back to the farm and his parents, and saying, I think I need to stay here in Smallville for a while. He doesn't necessarily have his tail between his legs, but he is emotionally exhausted, very fragile, and you really get a feeling of the man in Superman, as shown by Clark Kent. So this is the book that's made me come around on Tim Sale and realize what a really great artist he is. At first, his art wasn't for me, and I've grown to really dig it, and I see why so many people dig it. But it was that one page of Clark's vulnerability just right there to show me just how vulnerable even a Superman can be. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Leave some comments, please. Tell me what some books are that made you cry, choke up, grab your heart. We're all human. We all get it. And if you're lucky enough to read a comic that moves you, God bless you. I mean, and God bless whoever created it, because that is an amazing feat, I think, to create a comic that can emotionally move you. Please hit the like button, hit the notification bell when you subscribe so you get ding notified when I have a video up. Feel free to leave comments. And yeah, tell me what books you have that moved you emotionally. Maybe I can find some others that I'm unaware of. Peace and love, peace and love. Be good to each other out there. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate all of you. Thank you.